Meghan, wonderful to be here with you today.
Good with you.
It's London Tech Week. It starts once again. Talk to us about London's focus upon technology and if it's where you want it to be at the moment.
Well, this is Europe's biggest festival of tech and innovation, and it's amazing. We'll have a week of more than 200 events. There are more than 50,000 visitors coming to London Tech Week from around the world, and there's so much energy and excitement. The great thing about London Tech Week, it gets bigger and bigger each year. And you've got from startups to those thinking about startup to those accelerating to the multinationals to investors, entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers, all in one place. And so it's a very exciting ecosystem. And this is the future. Look, we can't run away from AI, automation, tech. Why? Because A, it's out there, but B, it'd be foolish to do so. I think we're going through a fourth industrial revolution. And I want to surf the wave. I want us to make the most of the tech sector, not just because of business, but because it improves our quality of life. I want to see how can tech be used to improve public services? How can tech be used to create jobs that are sustainable in the future? And we've made a great start this morning.
You talk about riding that wave. Interestingly, we're still seeing record VC money coming into London in terms of technology. We are seeing it continuing to grow, but there's slight competition out there. Notably, there's a report saying, look, now Paris is the #1 destination to put your money, so say 450 global investors. Are you worried about that London's been knocked off of the #1 spot?
Well, we must never be complacent, and I'm not complacent. But actually, there is lots of good news as well. What are the good news? A recent report in relation to AI showed, as far as AI companies are concerned, there are more in London than Paris and Berlin combined. Not that I'm competitive. So we are the AI capital of Europe. Also, we've seen in relation to tech investment, venture capitalist investment, still going up post-Brexit. So look at Apple, Google, Snapchat, Amazon, Facebook, continue to invest in London. But actually, I think Paris and Berlin raising their game is good for us. I see them more as working in collaboration with Paris and Berlin rather than as competitors. I think it's really good that we have this synergy where if you're a smart web designer in London, you're a startup in London, you now want to have a partner in Paris or Berlin. Even more important post-Brexit, I think the future is a future of cities working closer together, mayors working closer together, and peoples working closer together rather than national governments, bureaucratic, slow, cumbersome. So I welcome Paris and Berlin raising their game. It bodes well for London.
What about the regulatory environment here in London? What about welcoming companies such as Uber? We know that the license still being ongoing under discussion. Do you think that we're still as welcoming to tech companies, and how does that conversation continue?
I want London to be a place where you want to come if you're a tech startup, if you're in disruptive technology, if you're an innovator. I want you to come whether you're a multinational or whether you're by yourself with a friend. But here's the rules. The rules are everyone plays by them. The rules of the game, regulation must apply to everyone, whether you're Uber or whether you're with a partner starting up a startup. And it's really important that I support Transport for London when it comes to them as the regulator saying to somebody like Uber, listen, you're not playing by the rules of the game. I don't care how many lawyers you've got. I don't care how big your lobby arm is. Play by the rules of the game. Good news? The new global CEO has heeded that message. And if you look at these sounds coming from Uber, look at the changes they've made. They're respecting the rules we have, but also in the end, everyone benefits. The consumer benefits, a better service, no corners cut. Uber and other tech companies should benefit because they are doing the socially responsible thing as well. That'll hopefully lead to more profits being made. But I benefit as well because I want tech companies coming to London. I want disruptive technology. I want tech companies to be helping me provide better public services. It's cheaper, but also it's a 21st century solution to problems we've had for many decades.
Do you think that we are seeing companies growing with the ethics that you want to see in London? I know that you're someone who's very much focused upon diversity within the world of technology. Are companies getting that message?
What's remarkable is actually the values these companies have are really positive and progressive, but no one's engaged with them. So if you don't engage with them, they'll do it their own way, and they'll see their competitor cutting corners, and so will they. And I've engaged over the last 2 years with many of these CEOs, innovators, startups. They want to do the right thing. They want to pay a London living wage. They want to make sure that when it comes to the tech talent pipeline, they're going into deprived communities. They're making sure there are more women involved in these sectors. And the good news is young people and women want to enter these sectors. And so the reason why I'm excited about the tech sector for London is I think actually they're going to help make sure that parts of our city that haven't enjoyed the fruits of growth will enjoy the fruits of growth, because actually, with the right training and mentoring and support, anybody can do it. So I want young people to learn coding. Google are doing some great stuff around coding for girls. I want to see campuses that are sustainable and environmentally friendly. And so all the evidence I've had from my conversations and my dialogue with tech startups is they've got the right values. They love London. I was looking at some research recently in relation to AI companies. The number of founders who are either ethnically diverse or women was remarkable, which shows they've got the values, they've got the ethos, they need a helping hand. My job as the mayor is to give them the helping hand.
How about Brexit is taking that helping hand away? Have you found it hard to fight? Do you think that you still have got the message across that we're open?
Well, there's two things. One is I think London's underlying strengths will mean that we're okay. I mean, genuinely. Look at our talent pool. No other city in the world has as many universities in the top 50 as we do. Look at the diversity of our city. Look at our access to finance, our access to politicians, our access to culture. So London, it bodes well. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part, though, I can't run away from the fact that if the government gets it wrong with the EU and has an extreme hard Brexit, it's bad for our country and it's bad for the EU. So I'm lobbying the government to do right by our country, to do right by the EU. That means, frankly speaking, access to the single market, if not membership of the single market. That means access to the customs union, of the membership of the customs union. That means giving a cast iron guarantee to all those EU citizens in our country who make a remarkable contribution to our country. That means making sure there's a proper way of arbitration differences that companies may well have. And so I'll carry on lobbying the government. My concern is that internal party political machinations of the Conservative Party may dictate what happens rather than the national interest. And I've said to the Prime Minister, she's got to make sure that she does a deal that's in our country's interest rather than the Conservative Party's interest.
What about your party, the Labour Party, and where they sit in terms of access to the single market, the customs union? How are you lobbying them?
So I've written to every single member of Parliament this weekend saying that there are amendments coming back to the House of Commons from the House of Lords. In my view, if you care about jobs, if you care about wealth and prosperity, you should be voting for membership of the single market. You should be voting for membership of the customs union. You should ensure that you have a final say as Parliament on the deal the Prime Minister does. This is beyond party politics. This is beyond tribal politics. This is about if we get it wrong, we'll have an impact on our country for decades to come. I think this vote is probably the most important vote of this generation of parliamentarians. The other vote that's comparable is the vote on whether or not we went to Iraq. It's that big. And that vote, defined that generation of MPs. I think the votes this week and the votes taking place this October will define this generation of MPs.
What about the votes for the public? Do you think that there should be another vote on whatever deal we get?
It depends on the deal the government gets. I think the reality is this. If the Prime Minister does a deal with the EU that's rejected by Parliament, I think it's a different ballgame then. I think then what happens is one of a number of things. There could well be a general election. There could well be a second referendum. Look, nothing is engraved in stone. Nothing is permanent when it comes to Parliament. We believe our Parliament is sovereign. A new Parliament can change the actions of a previous Parliament. And also, it's unclear what people voted for. People did vote to leave the EU. Nobody voted, very few people voted, I would say, to become poorer. How do we measure how many people voted to leave the single market? How do we measure how many voted to leave the customs union? What I can say with almost certainty is very, very few voted to become poorer, to make our children and grandchildren poorer and less well off. And also the great thing about the EU is I've grown up having friends and family who are EU citizens, are now Londoners. Our parents' generation grew up with suspicion about our European neighbours. Do we really want a situation where our children are as suspicious as our parents? Or do we want our children to be as open-minded, outward-looking as we are?
If your letters don't work, what happens?
I'm going to carry on lobbying. I'm going to carry on arguing why it's important for us to have a good deal with the EU. I'm going to carry on making the case to parliamentarians and to the government why they've got to do a good deal with the European Union. And if our government fails to do a good deal with the EU, MPs should be brave and reject that deal when it comes back to Parliament later on this year in October.
And are you optimistic about the future of the Labour Party and that this won't be divisive for it as well as you already speak for the Conservative Party?
I think the reality is the issue of Europe divides all political parties. It divides families. The key thing is if you're a good leader, you've got to realise what's in the best interest of the country. Sometimes you've got to put aside party political interests for the benefit of the country. And what I'd say to leaders of all parties is whatever differences there may be in your party, don't think about self-preservation of you. Think about self-preservation of our country. Do we want to have a future where there are jobs, growth and prosperity? Do you want a future where our people are open-minded, outward-looking, pluralistic, or do we want a future where we're protectionist, where we have trade wars, we have barriers, we treat our neighbours as strangers? And I think that way lays peril and lays bad news.
Last time we spoke, there was a relatively combative set of tweets going on between yourself and the current President of the United States. How do you feel about the relationship that we have with the US at the moment?
Well, as far as the US is concerned, they are our closest friends. Many of us, me included, love Americans. We love America. We love their culture. We love the work that Americans do in tech and all sorts of other spheres as well. I'm really pleased to be welcoming Major League Baseball here next year after American football and basketball. But when you're a close mate, when you have a special relationship, of course you stand shoulder to shoulder at times of adversity, but you've got to be able to call people out and call out your best mates. And I think, look, when President Trump says and does things that I disagree with, or that are in, complete difference to American values and the America that I know, we're going to call them out. And I think, policies around protectionism, around trade wars, amplifying messages of hate, retweeting messages from far-right groups, I've got to call that out as the Mayor of London. And I think, if the President does come to London, he will see a city comfortable with our diversity, loves being diverse, loves having Londoners who are Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, those members of organised faith, those that aren't, respects our women, treats women with respect, and I hope he'll see actually it's possible to be pluralistic, and he'll see the sort of values that American presidents talked about and practiced before him.